Imagine a world where instead of going to a psychologist, you simply purchase an Ouija board with the purpose of giving a spiritual diagnosis of your mental state.
There's a planchette, which is that little window that glides along the board. And so what a spirit will do is that it will push on a person's energy field or the planchette and their hand and push that along.
Sounds weird, right? Well, not to Acra Harding, the TikTok creator who diagnosed her dissociative identity disorder via an Ouija board, and then she claims that she never had a therapist help her.
We started fronting as child authors. But they didn't know what exactly was going on. And we've never been able to find like a therapist that could help us.
But that's not even the craziest part about this woman, since she believes she had a child alter ego. She also did claim that pedophiles are victims, and people should not blame them.
The thing is that these people, these girls, they can choose, obviously, whether or not they're going to act on the thoughts, desires, and such they have, right? So, you know whether you act on them or not, right? So that's not something that people can really control if you're attracted to whoever you're attracted to.
But then what else do you expect from a woman who claimed her son was attracted to her and fully abusing her? In the vast and often unregulated world of TikTok, creators frequently use alternative spirituality and mental health narratives to build an audience.
I wouldn't, as a parent, with a picture of my kids on my profile, seek out someone who I believe is a predator, yeah, to then give them hate and then make my children a target.
So let me decipher this for you. She's saying that if she were a predator, that people who reached out to her that had children in their photos put their own kids in danger if she were in fact a predator. What a bizarre thing for someone to say.
But for Acra Harding, an online brand built around spiritual guidance and self-diagnosed psychological conditions became a shield for some of the most disturbing public admissions in internet history. Hiding behind alternative spiritual practices and claims of a fractured psyche, she aggressively defended the predatory behavior until her digital reality collided catastrophically with the real world. This is the timeline of Acra Harding, the weird mother whose public outrage is more than well deserved. Before the video that broke the internet, Acra Harding was a low-profile TikTok creator living in Perth, Australia, who described herself as divinely guided and heart-led. She operated under at least two handles on TikTok, Erliako G7 and Multidimensional Goddess, and at the time of the viral video, she was using the latter. All of her TikTok accounts have now been banned, and she has since been active on YouTube instead, with the name Harmony System. She identified publicly as non-binary, used they/them pronouns, and positioned herself online as a spiritual guide for people navigating trauma, mental health, and personal awakening. She calls that a sense of awakening on how to use her abilities. Here's the bio on her YouTube page. My videos will be so mixed and varied. We are an alter salad generally, and have to relearn about ourselves. I just want to hang with you, so if you watching were hanging out, I want to share my thoughts and experiences. I have what I call fluid identity, and I am on top of that quite strange. So I am among the chosen ones and have begun remembering how to use more abilities. Videos I upload used to be for my own benefit, but if there are any psychologists or anyone else who might be interested in my view of reality, then this is for them too. I channel music, speak to all things, and connect to all souls in all realities, timelines, and dimensions. Current focus is writing my course to teach others how to do the things I can do, but also developing my telekinesis ability. Oh, and learning self-care. Self-parenting times. Come watch me messily figure out how life works at the same time as figuring. So it was not surprising that she ran a second TikTok under the handle Multidimensional Goddess, which was linked on her main profile and made her belief system perfectly clear to anyone who visited. Her content up to that point was not particularly viral, but she had built a small community around her unconventional worldview and was treating it as a legitimate platform. That changed in late March 2026 when she uploaded a video that she opened with the words, "This one's going to be triggering for people." She said she was compulsively honest, that she was going to share something personal that would get backlash, and that people's responses to her would say more about them than about her. So she captioned the video with sensitive topic, attraction to children. She told viewers that anyone who disagreed was simply at a different part of their journey and had wounds they haven't healed yet, effectively diagnosing her critics as mentally unwell, but before she had said a single substantive thing.
I can explain from my perspective. Some people are gonna get it, and some people are not. Some people are gonna look for reasons to hate when it's not really necessary. But that's just what people do, and it depends on what part of their journey they're at, I suppose. It depends on what they've personally gone through and what wounds they haven't healed yet. And I know that other people's response to things isn't about me. It's about them and what they're going through. So I'm gonna try not to let, like, fear of being misunderstood by random people that I don't even know. Stop.
What she has basically done here is to set the tone for what is to come, and make any negative reaction look like evidence of the audience's personal deficiency, rather than a reasonable response to what she was about to say. What she did not reckon was that people already understood this sort of tactic and it was not going to work, and that was why she would later claim that a child altar had been responsible for the content. However, it was not even possible for a child altar to have constructed that kind of preemptive defense. One YouTuber, Cam Kirkham, saw through the tactics she had employed, noting that she seemed to think this preamble would soften the blow, but it actually had the opposite effect. It showed she already knew what was coming would be bad. Once she finished framing the audience as damaged people who would not understand her, she moved into the actual argument, which was about the definition of the word predator, and whether people were using it correctly. That was the point. Everyone could already tell what was coming. She explained that the technical definition referred to someone who had an attraction to children, then argued that this was different from an offender, because people could choose whether to act on their feelings.
Okay, and let me just explain what I mean by that. Technically, if you get down to it, we're talking about the meaning of words here, and the definition of pedophile is someone who has an attraction to children, but and I suppose because there's not that much like clarification around the fact that there's different attraction. There's like love attraction, and then there's sexual attraction. So I don't really know if it's just about...
By trying to subdivide the attraction itself, claiming there was a difference between a love attraction and other types, and arguing that the internet had been too imprecise in treating all of these as the same thing, she is setting the scene for what is to come. But not just that, she also wanted people to normalize a pedophilic attraction as just another attraction. Now, she stated what her intention was all around: defend predators and pedophiles by arguing that since people with these attractions could choose not to act on them, they deserve to be distinguished from actual offenders and treated with more compassion by the general public. What she was saying in essence was that people with these pedophilic inclinations should be viewed fundamentally as victims of their own minds. As expected, she eventually tagged everyone who rightly criticized the video as wounded people. But not just that, she recorded another video which she titled "Annoying Thing About Wounded People," where she expressed what annoyed her most about the viral video, asserting people purposely misunderstood and misinterpreted what she meant. She eventually used the phrase top-tier self-control to describe people who had these attractions, and chose not to act on them, suggesting they deserved some form of recognition for it. Many people also find it incredible when she mentions that people who have such feelings are struggling with shame and hiding themselves from the world just to feel accepted, and that it broke her heart to see them hated for something they could not control. Then, of course, as one would expect, she came up with the excuse that it is likely that such predators were themselves abused when they were younger.
So, I mean, when I was a kid, I was obviously abused by someone. I know my brother was doing stuff to me when I was 8, but I was doing stuff with my female friends earlier than that, and I'm not sure where I learned it. And there's this stuff about the babysitter that could be a thing, but honestly, if I'm being completely honest, there's been a whole lot of breadcrumbs about it being my dad that was abusing me.
It was important to understand this in context. It is perfectly okay to sympathize with anyone who was abused, especially when they were young, and even to be angry at the abuser. But what is not okay is to then use that as an excuse to understand their own sexual feeling towards kids. When people push back, she accused them of reacting from their own uncontrolled, intrusive thoughts, suggesting that their hostility toward it was projection rather than a reasonable moral response.
I know that you in the past, those people in the past, have struggled with their own intrusive thoughts. They've struggled to stay in control, right? And so they naturally just assume like other people can't stay in control of themselves and can't work through these things, you know? But no, it is possible to do that. I mean, that's the only reasoning that I can come up with that someone would like react in such a way and like say, oh, if you think this way, you must do this, you must act like this, you must feel this way or whatever. It's like...
She also said at one point, I've never sought someone out specifically so I could just hate on them, apparently trying to contrast her behavior favorably with the people who had come to challenge her.
On my profile, seek out someone who I believe is a predator, yeah, to then give them hate and then make my children a target. You know, this is just something that I don't understand about other people's like logic and reasoning. I'm just like, oh, okay, so you think that I'm a threat? You think that I'm a threat? So you go out of your way to track me down. That's predator behavior, by the way, just saying. Just saying. You go out of your way to track me down.
Moreover, upon paying closer attention to the original controversial video, she did not look reluctant, shaken, or nervous about any of this. She looked excited. She had the energy of someone who had been waiting a long time to say these things in public and was finally relieved to do so, which is very different from someone carefully navigating a painful disclosure. You could really say that she was actively trying to provide a justification for pedophilic attraction, just to say how welcoming people might be to the idea. In fact, when she said, "Don't hate me yet," finish the video before providing the justification, she made it seem as though the content that followed needed more context to make people more accepting of the view. While going through her thoughts, you could also see how she would occasionally joke about the subject and also smile in between words, indicating she either didn't grasp the gravity of the topic or it was a deliberate effort to trivialize pedophilic attractions. The internet's response came fast. Commentary creators, parenting communities, and general viewers immediately began saving and archiving the video, anticipating a deletion as soon as the scale of the reaction became clear. A mass reporting campaign was launched across multiple platforms, and her original TikTok was eventually taken down, though dozens of re-uploads ensured the removal accomplished nothing. But the defense of predatory attraction, as jarring as it was not even the part that triggered a government child protection intervention. That required a different layer of the same video, when she said something very dark about a young boy in her care and her own son.
There was this boy in one of the classes that I was in. He was like 4 or 5 or something. But he kept saying that he loved me. And I got huge butterflies.
Around 2 months ago, Acra released a 20-minute TikTok video that featured several escalating disclosures, each more alarming than the last. What was so enraging to people was not just her confession, but the fact that her line of profession meant she was always around children. Sometimes you'd expect kids to be warm towards people who take care of them and generally share words of affection, which would show they like being around them. However, this does not mean that they share any sexual attraction towards such a person. It was just a way for them to be respectful to the person. As an adult, it should be your place to understand this, and then conduct yourself properly around what you should do or feel was exactly what Acra felt.
He kept saying that he loved me, and I got huge butterflies. I got huge butterflies when I saw him, and I wasn't coping at all with the fact that I was having these feelings. It was fucking with my head so much. I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What does this mean? What does this mean about me? What is this? What's gonna happen? Like, what do you mean?
How exactly did she find that confusing? What the boy said should not have triggered any feeling. In fact, there was nothing confusing about that. She eventually stopped attending the placement entirely and spent what she described as too long away from it until they told her she could not return because she had missed too much of the course.
Yeah. So, because I was not coping with that, I kind of stopped going to
to the daycare for the prac, I needed some time. I needed to process what was happening in me. But that's the thing, on the last day that I was there, no, I ended up having a break for way too long, and they were like, you can't come back now. You missed it. Can't complete the course. And I'm like, okay.
Since she said she went away from the place to sort out her feelings, you'd expect that those feelings have been sorted, right? To everyone's surprise, what she said next was even more jarring. She said that upon returning, she was excited to see the boy, that he had called her a name that day, and that she cried because she felt he no longer liked her.
I came in to work so excited to see him, but that day he called me a poopy head, and I cried so hard. I was so devastated that he was calling me a poopy head. I was so sad. I was like, he doesn't like me anymore. And
basically, a 17-year-old adult had responded to a toddler's casual rejection with the same emotional devastation that a peer rejection would produce. It was as though she had a crush on the 4-year-old boy. But beyond the words, there was something much more telling about her narration. She was specific, emotional, and vivid. She glossed over them, and you could see the genuine regret in her eyes when she said the boy did not like her anymore. It was as though she regretted not taking her chances when they presented themselves. After the childcare course ended, she said she enrolled in a teaching aid course, using the reasoning that the part of her that had caused the problem had gone away, and she was normal again. Also, she was great at communicating with children because she had a child's perspective.
we need a job, we need to study. I'm great at communicating with kids. That's because I become a kid a lot of the time. So that's where that comes from. I can see from a child's perspective because I have a child's perspective a lot.
Amid all this, the one question on most people's minds was, why did she not get any help? Why did she think her problems had just magically gone away without actually facing them and working through them with a professional? This person says on YouTube that the fact that she's willing to share this publicly isn't compulsively honest. It's her wanting validation. If she was truly thinking that she would never actually do something to a child, she would have removed herself from spaces that involved any children and gone to therapy. Even going to the point where she's sexualizing her own child proves that she can't be trusted around any children. Obviously, there's more proof, but if she'll do it to her own child, she'll do it to all other children. As the video progressed, she said she had forgiven herself for having those feelings towards the boy. She said she had understood why she had those feelings for the minor, mentioning that it was her child's alter that had those feelings.
It took me a few years after that before I realized that that was a child alter inside me. That was one of my child versions of myself that was having a crush on this boy. It wasn't like adult parts of me, but there's still like this confusion because like my body was 17 at the time, so I'm like, does that mean that there's a 17-year-old in me who feels that way, where technically a 17-year-old is still a kid, but no. But no, right? Yeah, so it took me a few years to like forgive myself for even having those feelings, because now I realize, oh, it was a part of me that was like the same age as him that felt that way.
YouTubers like McGrubba wondered why she even went into teaching, knowing fully well her tendencies to have these feelings towards children, and why she even resumed her course after feeling what she felt towards the boy. A little while later, she said she had dropped out of the teaching aid course as well, but then re-enrolled. She would soon drop out of this as well, this time not because anything had happened, but because the memory of the first experience kept haunting her, and she was afraid she might develop feelings for someone at the new placement.
A few days or something, and I didn't get any feelings for anyone, but the memory of that happening kept haunting me, and I kept being afraid that I would develop some feelings for someone.
She presented this as evidence of responsible behavior and said she could not understand how childcare workers could knowingly harm children after she herself had stepped away rather than risk causing harm.
But then I'm like, I see all this stuff in the news now about like childcare workers doing bad things, and I'm like, how could they do that? Like, when I thought that I was going into a line of work where I might even potentially, like, traumatize someone, I couldn't do it. So how could people go into work knowing that they're going to like, I don't, so, yeah.
One might think those tears were genuine, and she would probably record the rest of the video with teary eyes. But that couldn't be farther from the case. Moreover, citing the actions of perverse care workers was just a way to shield the spotlight from her, and even show her sense of strong will. Furthermore, remember when she cushioned the initial impact of her disclosures. She mentioned that she was attracted to people across the full age spectrum, including men in their 60s, and used the phrase, "Age isn't a thing for me in either direction."
To sleep with some dude in his 60s, like, age isn't a thing for me in either direction. But in saying that, let me explain how I figured out all of this. Okay, don't hate me yet, finish the video. Okay. Fuck.
That just showed that her plans all along had been to justify her feelings and those of other pedophiles. But what she failed to realize was that the issue was never whether the attraction was exclusive to children, but that it included them at all. She also said something earlier in the video that became significantly more alarming once placed next to what she said later. She admitted that when she was younger, she had told herself that if anything were to ever happen between her and someone underage, it would only be because they had approached her first and made their intentions very clear.
I tried to convince myself that if anything were to ever happen between me and someone underage, it would be because they approached me about it, and they were very adamant about it, and they seemed to know exactly
what she was basically saying was that if the kid who had told her she loved her was adamant about it, she probably would have had something to do with him. She framed this as though it was okay for an adult to engage in a relationship with a minor. This statement, as well as the one she made about age not being a thing for her, would prove all revealing in her later confessions about her own son. Observers noted that paying attention to her body language, particularly her facial expression, her eyes seemed to light up when she was expressing her thoughts on the idea of welcoming the advances of a persistent minor towards her. Soon after, she started talking about her son, but this was not a mother-son type of talk. This confession brought the CPS to her door.
My son has been really creepy with me lately, and I've felt uncomfortable, and I've had to be like, no, this is not a thing. Like, he's 4 now, so, but, like, for instance, he sometimes, like, he tries to watch me get dressed or whatever. If he catches me, he will mention my boobs. Yesterday, he walked up to me and he just, like, reached up and was about to just double grab me. And I was like, no. I have trauma with my grandfather. I feel like I'm being traumatized by my son trying to lift up my shirt, and he, that's right, he just crawled up on my bed when I was trying to relax, and he the same boob that my granddad broke, and it was creepy, and it felt like he was being possessed.
Her son Leo was 4 years old when she recorded the video, and he was living with her at home while she uploaded it to the internet. She described the situation and framed herself as being victimized rather than as a routine parenting challenge. It was plain to everyone that the child needed to be removed from her care, and that interpreting normal toddler behavior through this lens said everything that needed to be said about the safety of the situation. What followed the incident was a claim that gave the video an entirely new dimension. She said that right after this happened, her son whispered something in her ear, and she interpreted this as proof that her sister had used dark magic to possess him in order to frame her.
But you know the creepiest part about that time? Right after that, he crawled up to me and he whispered in my ear, "I'm your sister." And my sister I've been getting all of these messages saying that my sister's been using all this dark magic or something, and trying to twist everything against me, and doing these rituals and stuff, and trying to, like,
put cursed items and stuff in with all of my belongings because it was at the house that she was in.
The problem here is that this confession only twisted her. For some reason, she seemed to think her sister, through dark magic, was using her son to make her into a pedophile. It then becomes imperative to ask why she is recording a video instead of seeking professional help. Toward the end of the video, she acknowledged feeling attractions she sometimes just can't control, and said it was really hard to live with that while people hated her for something she did not choose and did not like. More importantly, YouTuber Repzilla pointed out that she had shown more compassion for people with these attractions in that statement than she had shown for any of the children those attractions were directed at him in the entire 20-minute video. A creator on X posted a direct response, arguing that the video is a deliberate attempt to normalize the sexualization of children's behavior under the guise of mental health transparency, and should not be treated as a misunderstood personal disclosure.
No. Absolutely not. We're not doing this. We are not normalizing minor attracted persons. We are not normalizing attraction to children. This person needs to be locked up. And the fact that they felt so emboldened to post this publicly just says what kind of world that we're living in. Disgusting.
That reflected the near universal conclusion of everyone who watched the video. Akra claimed she was sharing this just to show that she possessed top-tier self-control, and argued that she was merely using her platform as a brave, honest space to share her daily struggles. People could not believe what they were watching. In fact, one YouTube commenter says, "Bro, she wasn't just telling the story, she was looking back at it fondly." And it was these conclusions that drove the mass reporting campaign that followed, which ultimately led to her multiple accounts being banned on TikTok and Child Protection Services of Australia, receiving multiple reports from people. But as we would later see in the video, she also had a problem with this. One thing we should know is that it is important to consider Akra's belief system in everything she does. It was not a background detail. It was the structural foundation of everything she said and the mechanism she used to deflect accountability when the consequences arrived. Taking a tour around her room, you could clearly see that her belief system defined her personality and her entire being.
That's my temporary desk, and I got like my laptop and I can play my games and stuff on Steam. Anyway, that's a new thing. I'm excited. Anywho, love yourself. In here is my bunk. Ugh. And these are my stuffies. The kids don't like stuffies as much as me, so they don't have as many as me. But yeah, and it's really dark in here. And I hung up my bags. I hung up that bag and that bag.
She blamed her feelings for the boy at her camp on her child altar, blamed her perverse relationship with her son on her sister using black magic, and once diagnosed herself with having DID without ever consulting a therapist, but using spirituality. She publicly identified as non-binary and claimed to have a complex self-diagnosed dissociative identity disorder system, consisting of multiple altars, including at least one child altar and several adult ones. DID is a real and recognized clinical condition. It is also one of the most frequently claimed and rarely verified diagnoses in online mental health communities, particularly in the 2020s. Dissociative identity disorder, DID, is a mental health condition where you have two or more separate personalities that control your behavior at different times. When personalities switch, you'll have gaps in your memory. The identities are usually caused by living through trauma. Psychotherapy can help you manage your symptoms. She also described herself as a multidimensional being, and this was not metaphorical language. It was a sincere statement about what she believed she was, which she used to explain the plurality of her identity and the nature of her altars. She once said that she had a dream that her bear, the one she had had since childhood, had been tainted and damaged all because she had not connected with it in a while.
I haven't really connected with the energy of it for a bit, and I actually remembered that I had a dream about it, like the other night, last night, the night before, one of them. And in the dream, I acknowledged that it had been tainted and spoiled in the past already by my dog humping it, and that had already made me sad. And that's kind of also why I'm kind of weird about how you...
So it was not surprising when she claimed to regularly communicate via telepathy with inanimate objects, most notably a lemon tree that grew near her home, whose conversation she would read aloud to her followers in recorded video.
Today, I spoke to the lemon tree outside. I will read you our conversation. Do you want to hear our conversation? Alright, so it started with me writing, okay, let's record channeled insights for today. What's coming through? The wind is welcoming me as though we just noticed one another. It shares its energy with me.
I accept the energy of flow, movement, and adventure. I allow this energy to fill my being and fill my field. I feel tension in my shoulders and back. I invite the wind to move through my very being and soften the tension within me. I take 3 intentional breaths, allowing wind to move through my tensions and begin to shake them loose and dissolve them. I now feel the need to shake and stretch my body in order to assist the energy flow. Alright, so that's what I was doing. I was just like, and that's not what I intended to write down, obviously. Obviously, it's not how channeling works. But I don't normally like write stuff down when I'm channeling. I usually just like, I don't know. I just wanted to see what would happen.
She described the tree as having a lot of personality, called it introspective, and announced that it was a multi-dimensional lemon tree, just like me, minus the lemon tree's inability to produce lemon tree farts.
Today, I spoke to the lemon tree outside. I will read you our conversation. Do you want to hear our conversation? Hang on. Alright, my glasses are here. Okay. Man, I'm adorable. Anyway. Let me get down. Okay. Strange.
She also believed, as documented across multiple videos, that her sister was conducting dark magic rituals against her, planting cursed items in her belongings, and performing spiritual manipulations to make the world believe she was something she was not. This was not a one-off comment made under stress. She described this conspiracy in specific detail across different recordings, and it was the explanation she reached for when her son whispered something in her ear that she found unsettling. In a video where she discussed consciousness and identity, she also reframed schizophrenia as the ability to perceive frequencies that other people simply could not access, arguing that people diagnosed with this condition were actually seeing things that were genuinely there, absent things.
Like schizophrenia as like something that's wrong with someone. It's literally the ability to see other frequencies that other people can't. Like, different people can hear different frequencies, they can see different things, they can, like, different people are different. What do you mean? And so some people have the ability to see things that are there that others just can't see. And just because we can't see it, we call them crazy. Like, oh,
she described humans generally as receivers and transmitters of frequencies, and said that the shifts between her altars were simply movements between different frequency levels, a natural process that everyone experienced but most people had not named.
Shit that's not there. No, we're not seeing the things that are there. You understand? What do you mean? Yeah. There's like so much people just don't understand. And about like DID being like you're multidimensional. You're a multidimensional person. That's the thing, like everyone is multidimensional. And that's what I started realizing, like, oh no, it's not the fact that like I have DID. It's the fact that everyone has DID. I'm retying my shoe for some reason. It's like everyone is multidimensional. That's what humans are. Like, what do you mean? We're a receiver and a transmitter. Yeah, of frequencies. That's what humans are. And we align with different frequencies based on our, like, different frequencies have different perceptions with them. I don't know if you ever noticed, but like when you're feeling like really, when your frequency is super low and you're feeling like super depressed, you're feeling super down.
This was important because it meant DID, in her framework, was not a disorder that required clinical treatment. It was a feature of multidimensional existence that she had simply perceived more clearly than others.
It's like everyone is multidimensional. That's what humans are. Like, what do you mean? We're a receiver and a transmitter. Yeah, of frequencies. That's what humans are. And we align with different frequencies based on our, like,
different frequencies have different perceptions with them. I don't know if you ever noticed, but like when you're feeling like really, when your frequency is super low and you're feeling like super depressed, you're feeling super down.
Having heard all of these, it was not surprising that her doctor wrote the word delusions in her medical notes after she described her abilities to him. But she responded by insisting that he was simply not qualified to evaluate what she was describing.
So then we need to get you like looked at. And he also wrote delusions because I was talking to him about my abilities, my powers and stuff. He sent me back to the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist was like, "You don't have delusions. There's nothing wrong with you." What do you mean? There's nothing wrong with your mental health? If you don't want medication for anything, then like we can't help you. What are you doing here? And he kept saying, I don't.
Basically, she is saying that. The psychiatrist told her he did not think she had DID, and her response was essentially, well, you're bad at your job then, because I know that I do. This contempt for professional clinical input was a recurring theme throughout her content. Every professional who disagreed with her self-assessment was operating at a lower level of understanding, unable to perceive what she could perceive. Then there's the personality switch. She described in her own video from 2014 the experience of switching between alters, describing personalities named Jess, Ellie, and Ashley, each with distinct traits, preferences, and histories, suggesting this was a framework she had inhabited for well over a decade.
First noticed a different person present. It was 2011, when I was in year 11, and this girl called Jess, she would come out, and she would come out when I couldn't really I couldn't handle situations emotionally. And when she came out, she was very apathetic. I guess nothing really fazed her at all, and she seemed kind of more tomboyish. There was one of our friends that was one of our main friends at the time, and she didn't like him, and he got angry and thought that I was making it all up as an excuse to not be his friend anymore. But after all that, now he's the only person who can tell the difference when there is a change, when there is someone else in charge. So
she described Jess as apathetic and tomboyish, Ellie as energetic and young, and Ashley as rational and clear-headed, and said she could sometimes call on them deliberately or simply observe when they switched in without her full awareness.
I know that there's no point because other people don't have to know that it's her, so whatever. Basically, she comes out and makes tough decisions when the main person, Alex, can't. Not long after we noticed her, there was another one named Ellie. At first I think we liked her because she was fun. She had more energy. She was a few years younger than us. And at the time, I thought, oh, if I tell people that I have another personality and she's younger than me, they're gonna be like...
Since her entire life revolved around spirituality and her self-diagnosed DID, it all became her primary defense of predatory attraction. It was load-bearing, because it gave her a ready mechanism for assigning any troubling behavior to an alter, denying accountability to her adult self, and framing any external judgment as evidence of the critic's spiritual limitations. But this did not protect her. The real world arrived anyway. After the backlash reached critical mass, Akra did not go offline. She uploaded more videos, and her responses made everything considerably worse.
Hey. You may or may not recognize me. I don't know. Either way, I'm going to introduce myself. So, I'm Akra, or Alexandria, and, I am, I guess I am a guide, and healer, and many things, but, so recently, I posted this video online, right? And the video was a story, right? You have to listen to the whole thing to understand the point of it. You have to listen from the beginning to the end to understand what the point of it is. Okay? Alright. So many people did not watch the entire thing.
Her first formal response was titled "Child Alter Explains Confusion," and in it she claimed that the statements made in the original video had been delivered not by her adult self, but by a child alter within her DID system who had been processing trauma. She seemed to believe this explanation would satisfy the public, since it implied that a child operating at a developmental level, appropriate to a 4 or 5-year-old, had been the one making those statements, and that the adult version of herself should not be held accountable. Ultimately, you could tell that all she was trying to do was push the blame to something else entirely, just so she could get people off her back. Moreover, a child could not have had the extensive personal history which she claimed, since the alter is in fact a child. She also made the point in another video around this time that she had never been able to find a therapist who actually helped her, presenting this as context for why her processing had taken the form of a public TikTok. She then launched a separate attack on the people who had reported her, arguing that anyone who came after her online with pictures of their own children visible on their social media profile had made their children into targets, because if she were actually dangerous, seeking her out would be predator behavior on their part.
You know what bothers me the most about my video going viral and then people getting like the wrong idea? You know what bothers me the most about it? These geniuses, they... Alright, so look, if as a parent myself, if I heard that somebody was potentially a child of, right, which I'm not, but if I believed that someone else was, yeah.
She then said it made no sense to seek out and threaten and even give hate to predators if you have images of your kids on your profile. To her, that was like making them available to predators. She said that because of other people deciding to take everything into their own hands, her child had been placed with people she had been protecting him from.
Send him around. But he seems okay for now. So, that's good. But yeah, that could have been very, very bad. So, try not to put other people's families in danger because you're afraid of your own self and your own lack of self-control. You can't just assume everyone else has as little self-control as you. It's okay. Everything is working out the way that it's meant to. So, all good. We're a team. We're doing this together. So even if you hate me, I love you. So, haha!
The irony of that statement was not subtle. The child in question was the same child whose safety had prompted the reports in the first place, and she was now framing his removal from her care as a harm to him caused by the people who had called for his protection. Child protection services in Australia received reports from multiple independent sources. The TikTok creator Ruby, with the news, confirmed that CPS had been contacted enough times, and consequently, the child was formally removed.
Okay, I have a major update for everybody who saw that one, who reached out, who made this possible. Her name is Acra Harding. Here's her Facebook profile. Child protection in Australia was reached out to multiple times by many different people, and I can verify that they are taking the proper actions needed for child safety. I also have a verified text message chain with the father of the child that the child has been removed from Acra's care. He stated he removed the child the moment he was made aware of this.
The child's father was also contacted separately, and he confirmed that he removed the child the moment he became aware of the situation. What happened next was one of the most revealing moments of the entire story. After her son was no longer in her care, she uploaded a video in which she reflected on the change in her home environment and said she could finally relax because she did not have to clean the house as often.
Anyway, so my room was, my bed was covered in stuff since like Leo left, because I had a whole bunch of my own trauma come up, and I also like usually don't have any time to myself, so I was like, holy shit, I can finally like relax for a bit and try and like heal and not focus on cleaning, because I clean a lot when the kids are here, so I can like stay relatively sane. Because if there's a lot of demand on me, then I just can't. So but you should see what I did in my bed.
In a later YouTube video, she attempted to reframe the original viral video as a misunderstood trauma processing exercise, arguing that people had taken clips out of context, and that anyone who watched the whole thing from beginning to end would understand that her message had been the opposite of what people thought. She complained that the CPS investigation had been conducted improperly, that investigators had not watched the full video before getting involved, and that they had traumatized her children by removing them based on secondhand accounts from people who had not seen everything she said. She said child services had found no evidence of actual abuse, and presented this finding as vindication, rather than as the baseline minimum that a parent under investigation was expected to meet.
Yeah, they're saying like there's no evidence that my children have been abused. And I'm like, yeah, no sh**. Like, for me, like, yeah, no sh**. I know that. But then they said that, so I'm obviously, they said that they still have concerns that I could be a risk in the future.
When authorities indicated they still had concerns about future risk, she compared the situation to an earlier custody dispute involving her daughter, presenting a history of prior conflict with child protection systems, as though it established a track record in her favor. She also described her son telling her that being with her made everything all better, and said this made her deeply happy. In the same video, she described him allegedly expressing hostility toward his father and wondering whether he was telling her what she wanted to hear.
He literally says, I don't know if I've done this on a video before, but anyway, he literally says, when I'm with daddy, it's like this. But when I'm with you, it's all better. And he says that multiple times. He said that multiple times to me. And it, like, makes me so fucking happy every time, knowing that I make it all better. But, like, him saying that he doesn't like being at his dad's and he wants to kill him and stuff, and that he doesn't like his dad, like...
Throughout all of this, she did not stop producing content. She maintained an active presence across Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Threads, and a YouTube channel called Harmony System, all under the same name. She was still offering tarot card readings and spiritual guidance to followers, the kind of content that tends to attract young and vulnerable people looking for direction. The full arc of her story, from spiritual guide to viral disclosure to CPS removal to defiant justification content, follows a pattern that is unfortunately not unusual. Someone using fringe identity and spiritual exceptionalism as insulation from accountability until the real world closes in. She did not invent the playbook. She just ran it until it stopped working and then kept running it anyway. The moment she uploaded a 20-minute video attempting to normalize the victimizations of her own toddler, the internet refused to look away. Her desperate attempts to blame a child altar, her audience's unhealed wounds, and her sister's dark magic rituals all failed to sway the reality of law enforcement and her son's father. Ultimately, Acra Harding stands as a stark reminder of why everyone should protect their children from freaks like this on the internet.